I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, for the roll call, let the record reflect that all members are present. For board chair comments, this is a great month. Obviously, we have all kinds of recognition, which is amazing, for all the different groups and different things like that, and graduation. So everybody saw the signs up front that went up this last week, and we got a lot of graduates changing times in their lives. So it's a great turning point for us in the school in May. That's all I have for comments. So I will start with an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Director Hackett,
I'll second.
second, Director Roaring. All right, any discussion for the agenda? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, and to the good part, the appreciation, recognition, and presentations.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Werekamp, I have a small worksheet packet of awards to hand out tonight. I'm going to start with the students of the month. We are also, May is wonderful for recognizing students. It's terrible for having them be here with golf and baseball at Atwater and softball in a playoff game tonight. And our seniors got home from the class trip today at 2. And I'm guessing some of them are probably sleeping already. We'll see who we have here tonight. I'm going to recognize students of the month. These are seniors that are voted on by the staff throughout the year to receive this recognition. The September student of the month, Joseph Akin. October student of the month, Ava Sheenra. December student of the month, Ashley Knettle. November student of the month, and he was here last time, Connor Carlson. January student of the month, Sarah DeLayden. February student of the month, Maya Yorzik. March student of the month, James Van Erden. April student of the month, Morgan Duvel. And the May student of the month, Nola Blaze. So congratulations to the students of the month for this year.
Right away, or
We'll wait.
we'll wait?
I think it'd be easier. You guys stand up and then we put people in.
Yep. Agreed. So you'll have to wait just a little bit.
Here, I'll sit down for a minute. The next person I'd like to recognize is William Roche. William, do you want to come up here? William is our Royalton Spelling Bee champion. And then he went to the regional spelling bee at Sourcewell and also won that. And it's the second time we've had a Royalton student win the regional spelling bee. And so he is leaving Sunday for pretty much an all expense paid trip for 7 days to Washington, DC and Baltimore to compete in the national spelling bee. He is receives his airfare and hotel, and the family is going out for a week. And he gets a stipend, and they're going to do some traveling and some sightseeing. And so this is an incredible honor. And William has been an excellent speller. I remember watching him even when he was in the real early grades in 5th grade. If he wasn't winning it, he was coming into the finals even then. So it was you kind of like lived up to the reputation, man. So I'd like to congratulate William Roche on being the regional spelling bee champion. The state speech meet, I'm doing a couple here for Tony. We had 2 students that placed. at the state speech meet. That is held at the end of April at East View High School in Apple Valley. Students go down with students all across the state in Class A, and speeches broke into Class A and AA, I believe. So there is a lot of competitors. We had Brooke Winter, who was the third place at state in poetry. Congratulations to Brooke. And Nate Moga placed 8th at state in extemporary reading. So congratulations to Nate and Brooke on their fine performances at the state speech meet. In early May, we had our Students of Character banquet up at Madden's Resort. These are awarded every year at Royalton High School to students who display leadership and character, whether that be as a friend, as a student, as a leader, as a participant in our activities. These students are what we're looking for. And how when you meet a student, you just, God, they just do things the right way. They have a high degree of integrity. They work hard. They're positive with their classmates. And these two students this year exemplified that. The 2023 Sourcewell Students of Character were Ashton Oldakowski and Kylie Brzezinka. Congratulations to them. Our Sourcewell Educator of Excellence Award winner at Royalton High School this year goes to a teacher who was a veteran in the English department. She works very hard with the students, has good relationships with them. One of my favorite, it takes a special educator. When you walk into an English classroom, she had a classroom of 18 boys in English class. And when I walked into her classroom, they were arguing about a novel that they were reading. It wasn't arguing like, why do we have to do this? Or it was an argument about the novel, about the things that were happening in the novel and why they thought characters were acting certain ways. And the students had they had done the reading and they understood what they were talking about. And it was just an excellent display of this teacher's ability to connect with the kids and to present curriculum that was of interest to a group of 18 senior high boys. That Educator of Excellence Award for 2023 is Sherry Mendel. Oh boy, okay. This week at graduation, we will have our co-salutatorians for the class of 2023 and the valedictorian. The class of 2023 co-salutatorians are Ava Shanerock and Sophia Conrad. I won't make her give her speech yet. She's got to do that Friday. And the valedictorian for the class of 2023 is Connor Carlson. Congratulations to Connor. My final 3 awards this evening are recognitions. We have 3 staff members who are retiring at the end of this year. The first one is a guy in recognition of 38 years of service, commitment and dedication to educate the students at Royalton Public Schools. 24 years ago was one of the first people I met here. He is one of the kindest, most thoughtful people that I have met in education and has done a tremendous job. Like to wish best of luck in his future endeavors to Randy Tilges. In recognition of 11 years of service, commitment, and dedication to the Royalton Public Schools, this is indicative of this guy's work ethic. Is we had an activity, I think it was a wrestling tournament on a Saturday. It was either a wrestling or a basketball tournament on a Saturday, and there were other people from other schools here. And if you ever been in through our buildings, even at the end of a school day, they look very much like they did at the start of the school day. They are well kept. They are clean. And during this tournament, we had hundreds of people here. And this person, I actually believe one of the area schools was trying to poach him as he was working at in our building, which was a compliment to how well our building is maintained and how well this person was doing at the time of keeping that building clean, despite having he was a one-man crew with hundreds of people in the building. He has always had a high level of making sure that our buildings look great. He will be retiring at the end of the school year. And we're hoping that we can somehow bring him back or coax him back part-time or something. But congratulations on his retirement to Pat Sabanya. And then my final recognition of the night is for 16 years of service, commitment, and dedication to the students of Royalton High School. She just held her last concert last Monday. And she has been a part of our choir program for a long time, 16 years. Would like to wish congratulations on her retirement to Sherry Plouffe. So congratulations to the middle school, high school. Like I said, it's a tough night to get people here with all the activities and things going on towards the end of the school year. But they are definitely worthy of being recognized for their contributions to Royalton High School, its activities, and as employees. So thank you.
I wanted to recognize Aaron Meyer. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but he was also selected as an educator of excellence. And Aaron has been doing a terrific job for 20 years. Consistently, kids love him, shows up every day, does a good job. So it's well deserving of the award. So congratulations, Aaron. Sherry's gonna come up to recognize the math master students.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Camp. I'm Sherry Bishop. I was one of the coaches for the Math Masters team. I say one because I think with Math Masters, all teachers that have taught math are their coaches. They've been going through it since kindergarten, and it's just really built a good, solid foundation for them. But it was really fun to see them compete here at the end of April at Sourcewell. There were 26 teams there, 131 fifth grade students, and both of our teams placed that day. So it was all Region 5 schools and some St. Cloud schools as well. And they did fantastic. They spent the whole morning doing different math tests and competitions. Most of it was like a grade or two above their level. So it was very difficult. And they just did awesome. And then most of them came back to school and did more math that afternoon. So they did a lot of math that day. But I want to recognize those 10 students today. Some of them placed individually as well as the team. So I'll introduce the gold team first. Our first member was Jackson Casella. Our gold team took 4th place. He also took 13th place in the fact drill and as an individual 15th place. Jackson. Our second member was Amelie Nelson. She was part of the 4th place team. We also had Blake Roaring, who was part of that 4th place team. Teddy Ruley was also part of that team. He also earned the individual 5th place winner, which was our top winner for the day. Ronan Jace Walker, he was also the last member of the Math Masters 4th place team. And then our maroon team took 6th place, so not too far behind. And our first member of that team was Ewan Larson, and Ewan also took home 2 other awards. He was the the 4th place winner for the fact drill, and also a 6th place winner for individual. The other members of that team were William Marshall, Emmett Paulson, Caleb Schneider, and Gabriel Zimmerman.
You guys can stay up there for a second. We'll get our pictures now.
Yeah, yeah.
Gary.
We're gonna have you.
Getting taller than me. You gotta bring somebody short. That's a great idea.
Go on board with your stay. And then, why don't we do Yvonne's, Sarah? Yeah, come on. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
All right, there. There, yeah, or you know, your face. Yep.
Should we switch positions?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
William. Yes, William. All right. Thank you.
That everybody?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
All right. Next is recognition of citizens for input purposes. So I'll read the public participation at board meetings. The Board of Education allows public participation at its meetings, but at the same time has the responsibility for conducting its business in an orderly fashion. The chairperson will provide the audience with an opportunity to address the board at the beginning of the meeting. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes for his or her presentation. When there are a large number of speakers to be heard, the Board of Education may shorten the time. Undue interruption or other interference with the orderly conduct of the Board of Education business cannot be allowed. Defamatory or abusive remarks are always out of order. The chairperson may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if, after being called to order, she persists in improper conduct or remarks. Members of the Board of Education and the superintendent may question a speaker or make comments in response to a speaker's remarks. At a public meeting of a board, no person shall orally initiate charges or complaints against individual employees of the district or challenge instructional materials used in the district. All complaints about staff or other issues shall be referred to the superintendent for investigation and report. Do we have any recognition for citizens for recognition? All right. We'll move to reports and news. So let's start with the board committee report, and we'll start with finance.
All right, the finance committee met on Tuesday, May 16th. And most of these details will be covered in the business manager's report as well. And a legislative update was shared during that meeting, and basically just business as usual.
All right, thank you. So I'll talk about Midstate next. I wasn't able to make it to that meeting because of work, but what we've been working on over the past few months is the fund balance in Mid-State. So the fund balance has been growing and growing, for what we pay them and what they need. So, just like we have a percentage of our, in our policy that says we need to keep this much percent on hand, they were well over what they had. So we talked about, as a board talked about, paying that back to schools. And, so as a board, we approved that this last week. So, coming back to the general fund, we'll have $154,826, coming back to us, to our general fund. And then from April through June of this year, we'll have $27,710.43 coming back from them.
Well, they
So,
actually won't bill us.
right, that they won't
So
bill us
just-
for
we
it.
don't have to pay it.
So that was huge news, obviously. So that's great. And then policy. You want me to talk about policy?
It doesn't matter if it's two.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so policy committee, we met on Monday, May 15th. And so just the long and short of that is policy 414 and 415, they are completed. Policies 506, 514, 515, 521, 531, they all move forward to their third and final readings. And policies 601 and 806 are gonna move forward to second and final readings due to just minor changes. And we're working on policies 505 and 533. They're gonna move forward for second full readings because there needs to be some language changes and other revisions. And then policies 522, 524, and 904 will be added to for next month's first readings.
Perfect. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Yeah, so we have a busy month this month. Also, in more recognitions, we recognize our nurses, our nutrition services staff, principals, and teachers this month. So we want to formally thank all of them for their hard work that they do in devotion to our children. Just another reminder, graduation 7 o'clock on Friday. You know, for us, we get to go to them every year. For the kids, it's their only one, so it's pretty exciting for them, and gotta keep that in mind. We also have preschool, three-year-old and 4-year-old graduations, kindergarten graduation, if that's what we're calling it. And then we have 5th grade graduations coming up. So busy time. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see out the district, in front of the district office, our floral landscaping class went and did some landscaping out there. That little plot that sits in front and made a little ridge there of flowers, so kind of dress it up for us. That was fun to see them out there. And then I can just give a really brief legislative update because they're not yet done. Today, they're supposed to adjourn. We'll see if they make their midnight deadline. One thing I'm pretty confident in is that the dollars will be accurate. So right now, they've agreed to 4 and 2, so 4% on the formula for the first year, 2% on the second, and tied to inflation. We have been asking for it to be tied to inflation for 15 years, and they're finally doing it. However, there's a floor of 2% and there's a cap of 3%. So when you have 7% inflation, it won't be tied to a 7%. So also excited about the special education cross subsidy help they're going to finally start providing. So 44%, they'll take care of that portion of the cross subsidy for fiscal years 24 through 26, and then it'll raise to 50% in fiscal year 27. Unemployment insurance, they are offering funding for the first year, but none for second or any further out years on the unemployment. So we're not real sure how that will ultimately impact us, as in how many staff would actually take that unemployment over the summer, but it would effectively start in May, whenever your school year adjourns.
They figure out the insurance part of that?
No, so there is a meeting that I will be attending on, I think it's this Friday, where somebody from the Department of Employment and Economic Development is going to talk about how it will work.
Okay.
Because I've asked and nobody can give an answer, so I think they finally figured out they have to address this, so we'll know more then. There were over 3,000 bills presented this session. Prior year, there was like 780. So it has been a whirlwind. So they're funding well, but there's a lot of mandates that go along with that. And so I have a book of notes from 2 different meetings that I attended last Friday. And so once it's all completely fleshed out and agreed to, then I will make a presentation back in June to talk about what those changes are. One of noted impact will be the READ Act and the requirement for professional development for all teachers, all EL teachers, all SPED teachers, and then K-3 teachers upwards to 5th grade around the science of teaching reading. So that's good. However, I just don't, we'll see how the mandate works on the timing of when you're supposed to have this, as well as a lot of screeners, reading screeners for students. Parents can opt out of those, but will be required to give those. So it's gonna be a
As a reading screener.
for like dyslexia and one of the issues you might have in reading. So just letting you know that that'll be a big one. And as it all gets put together, I'll do a presentation during the month there. So and I am checking into one other thing. They are expanding the Safe Schools revenue to include cybersecurity. In the past, you couldn't use that revenue stream for cybersecurity. They are expanding it to that. And I think there are grant dollars available to upgrade some of your building security. So I'm gonna double check because I talked to 2 different orgs and one made it sound that that was the case and the other one didn't allude to that. So I'm gonna do a double check. So that could help us when we talk about safety and with our building. So that's what I have, unless anyone has questions.
All right, thank you. Business manager report.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I am Scott Marion, and for those board members that have already been through this presentation, I apologize. But if you thought of any questions before then, please let me know. And Michelle, you're going to share the report on the screen for everybody to see?
Yes, I can do that.
All right, I can't see the screen, but if you just let me know that's done.
Okay. It's
Perfect,
ready.
thank you. All right, so the May 23 budget update. So our enrollment was originally adopted at 920 ADMs, and the revised budget we did at 938 ADMs. And our current enrollment as of April 16th was 947 ADMs, and that may differ from Superintendent Weirkamp's report. But you can see we are being conservative with the number of ADMs we have at Royalton. And in the last board meeting, we were asked to, or I was asked to show a 10-year enrollment history. And that's what we're looking at here now. So on slide 3, hopefully you're on. So I went back over the last 10 years and provided the ADM enrollment history for Royalton. And you can see right around the time where COVID hit in FY20, we were at 950 ADMs. And then FY21 and 22, we started that downward trend like a lot of districts did. But now in FY23, we have rebounded substantially to around that 947 mark. So we continue to see great growth and rebound from COVID, and obviously continuing the enrollment at Royalton. Scrolling down now to the revenues. So as you guys all know, the board report is a more substantial report that I always put in there, but I take out the snippets of the revenues plus the program by object series for the expenses. And then I give a snippet of what's happening. So in the next slide, I do show the expenditures, 870,000 ahead of FY22 pace, but then I go into the explanation. So for revenues, we're 823 ahead of where we were in FY22, primarily from the biennium increase and the additional ADMs. And also I do want to remind everybody, this is less than 10% holdback. Expenditures, we 871,000 ahead of FY22 pace, and that's primarily due to purchases of capital equipment and salary and benefit increases from the previous biennium. And then purchase services are up due to staff coverage. The next slide, as we continue through, after we did the Finance 101, Dr. Weirkamp and the board had asked that I continue to do a highlight to continue our development of school finances and how they operate. In this particular month, I chose title funding to go over that with the board. So Title I is a federally funded program to support the school district students in educating the economically disadvantaged. And the Title I funds are derived from State Census Bureau administrative records such as tax returns, state population estimates, economic data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis determine how much each state receives in title funding. So once each state is determined with how much funding they're going to get, the way that we are determined how much of that revenue we're going to get out of Royalton is through the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, otherwise known as the free and reduced applications. So that is the only determining factor that we have control over. So we want to make sure that we are having everyone fill those forms out. And that's why you'll hear Dr. Weerkamp and I talk a lot about that program and making sure we get all the applications turned in as we possibly can, because it drives how much of the funding we will get in Title I dollars. So that's the reason why we always stress that. Going over the last 10 years, so next slide, Michelle, please. So going over the last 10 years, this is the percentage of the free and reduced applications that we have and received for Royalton. And you can see that has ranged kind of following along the lines of our enrollment in the slide above, where down in FY20 started to dip and now we're coming back up. I started to put on here too the revenues that we had received, but if Minnesota received less funding for our state in that particular year, we could have some years where our percentages are higher, but we had less funding than say a year in 21-22 when we had a lower percentage. It just means that Minnesota had received more funding that year. So hopefully that makes sense. But other than that, that is the financial report. Any questions?
Scott, do
From
you
the
think
group?
that those numbers for 2021, 21, 22 are down because of the lunch program that was provided during COVID?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. Because most in every district's in the same boat too. So once families or students are found out that everything's free, they simply just didn't fill out the forms because they didn't really see a need to. But there is a need to do that so we can make sure we continue with our Title I dollars and increasing those funds, because that goes for, that typically covers a teacher, a para, or a lot of different things that the schools need to be able to function. And that is 100% reimbursed. So we spend those funds and then we draw those down. So Michelle, if you still have my presentation on the board, if you scrolled back up to the revenues slide 4, and you look at the federal revenues. So if you see the received year to date, right about in the middle of your screen there, we have $600,000 received year to date. Whereas if you look at the past 2 years off on the right hand side, we had 332 and 471. So that's when we spend those funds and we draw those down. So in a lot of schools, what they'll do is they won't draw those funds until the end of the year during the audit. But again, we want those funds in our bank account so we can draw interest off of those funds rather than the government continuing to collect interest off of those. So we try to do that at least quarterly to draw those funds down. And you can see by looking at this report, we're doing a great job of drawing those so that are hitting our bank account and just not sitting there waiting for us to collect them at the end of the year.
So those forms that they fill out affect title and they also affect our compensatory revenue. And so legislation now is coming through that 80%, before 50% of your compensatory had to be used by the building that earned it. The rest could go to the district, but the district could use across its buildings. Now they're changing that to 80% of the compensatory will have to be used in the building in which it was earned. So we'll have to take a look at our 2 buildings to determine how that flushes out to ensure those get allocated appropriately. But those forms are really important.
Are those cross subsidies tied to them at all?
Well, no,
I didn't
it's
hear
more
the
of what you can do. with
Okay.
them, yeah,
Yeah,
it's more of what else you could offer students who might need support. Special educations where you have all these requirements that they don't fund. That-
Right.
That's the cross subsidy, and the same thing with English learner, like,
I was just wondering if that,
yeah,
that'd be like legislature too.
require all this. and-
Yeah, so that's.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
All right, any other questions for Scott? All right, thank you, Scott. Principal report.
Good evening, Superintendent Weerkamp, excuse me, Chairperson Hofstad and the rest of the board members. So School is going very well. We're working really hard, keeping everybody engaged. We're gonna try to do that right to the last day. Thank you to the PTO for organizing Staff Appreciation Week, including meals for the teachers. That was May 8th through 12th. And then last week they organized a Spring Fun Day fundraiser for the school. So great PTO organization. Thank you. Staff organized a goodbye gathering for me at the American Legion. So just thank you to the staff and Dr. Werkamp for supporting that. And my 3 grandchildren were there. So that was fun. RIF program is tomorrow at 8:40. Dr. Werkamp mentioned the graduations, preschool tomorrow, kindergarten, May 31st, grade 5, June 1st. And thank you and congratulations to our music teacher, Mrs. Samantha Thompson, and the staff on the first grade 4 and 5 spring music concert. Thought it went really well, and the kids showed off their talent. Fun to see. Any questions for me? Thanks.
Chair Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Werkamp. I have just a very brief graduation. You should have got your email seating chart. Everyone good to go. We will meet in the media center at 6:30 for your corsage. And then we will, with the graduates, walk down to the South Gym. And we will start the procession right at 7 o'clock. And like mass, it should be about exactly an hour. So thank you in advance for your involvement. It is as the governing board of the school district, having school board members be a part of graduation, and we've always had a strong tradition of that. Shows our community and our students that the governing board finds what they're doing important by your attendance at graduation. So I thank you in advance for that. So any questions for me? All right, thank you.
All right, the last recognition we have is for Dr. Grabata. So if you'd like to stand up. So we have a plaque here for you. And you know, on Friday, we had your retirement thing out at the Legion there, which was very well attended, and it was great to hear all the different stories, some about you and some about the staff, but all good, all good. But 35 years, so 35 years of outstanding service to the students, community, and school system. You're an amazing principal who has truly made a difference in the lives of hundreds of students. The influence you've had can never be erased. Thank you for making a lasting imprint on our students in school. And this is from the school district and the board. So again, I talked to you there too, but I really wanted to say thank you. You know, thousands of students have come through in 35 years that you've touched the life of. The teachers doing professional development and everything that where that elementary school is now is because of your leadership and how we're aligning all of the different curriculums and all the different things we have. So, you know, Tony is going to come into a great school because of what you've done. So just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Yep, let's get a picture.
It looked like there's a lot of people on that side, so.
Okay. Okay.
Try I go through the lab.
I know. That's what I want.
All right, next on the agenda is the consent agenda for approval. Board is consenting to approve the items listed below as presented at one time. At any point, a director can pull an item off the consent agenda for further discussion. So we have the approval of the regular board meeting minutes from April 24th, work session meeting minutes from May 11th, claims, accounts, and financial, approval of resignations, approval of new hires. And that's it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the consent agenda.
All right,
Second.
Director Hackett, second by Director Bowman. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I'd like to ask a question about claims, accounts, and financials,
Yep.
if that's possible.
Yep.
I just have one thing I would like to learn a little more about. I'm hoping someone here could inform me tonight. About our JOT form subscription. I was just wondering what that company was and what kind of services we receive.
Yeah, I'll let David explain how it works and functions.
So it's a online form system. We've been taking some of the HR forms, putting them in there so that staff can fill them out electronically. And then it keeps all those forms in a system that you can pull them and.
So I'll give you an example. Teachers want lane changes. They have to get it pre-approved by the superintendent, so they can fill it out online. It comes to me, they sign it and date it online. It comes to me, I can sign and date it online. It then goes to HR office to get filed. Then when they complete their coursework, they can go back into the next form and put that on to get the actual lane change completed, because they would have finished their coursework. They can upload their transcripts right there. So it's all in one place and it's all on. Cuts down on the
Is it like
paper.
electronic form signing like you would do at a bank and those kinds of things as well?
Yeah.
Offers that service, okay.
You can set up big like workflows and not to get it to go to different people and signatures rather than having a piece of paper.
Right.
Cutting down on the paper trail.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to understand.
Any other discussion? All right, I'd just like to add for the resignations, a thank you to Ms. Stoneman, Ms. Barton, and Ms. Holman, and a welcome to our new hires, Ms. Gold, Ms. Holtz, Ms. Lindmeyer, and Ms. Pop. So with that, I will, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, number 10, we'll go into the FY 24 budget review.
Yep, Michelle, if you can, please pull up the FY 24 adopted budget.
Yep, I have it up.
All right, perfect. So again, as I present this and I talk to you guys about the adopted budget, I know we're not approving this tonight, but it's hard to tell you not to pay attention to the estimated or the ending year projected fund balances, because the estimated beginning fund balance for next year is obviously not audited yet, but that is projected based on the ending balance of FY 23. All we're approving are the revenues and expenditures. The revenues are based off of the new legislation of 4% and 44% cross subsidy. And then the expenditures using a percentage increase for our salaries and benefits to estimate those out. Going down those columns of the revenues and expenditures, the student activities, I'm not doing anything with those. Those are the student activity fundraising accounts that they go out and they earn those dollars. So if there's the only thing that can't come out of there are basically salaries, but other than that, they can purchase things that they fundraise for. Same thing with scholarships as well. Staff development, that is, showing 153,000 for next year, 2% of your basic ed revenues. And then the expenditures of 49,000. Going down to operating capital, this number is subject to change due to the legislative changes, and we'll update that before we do our official adopted budget. But showing 227,000, 328,000 in expenditures. Gifted and talented, same thing. I don't need to go through all these for you guys. I know you've seen it. I think this is now maybe the fourth time or third time that we're seeing these. But I do want to just take a minute and talk about the LTFM. So the LTFM are showing $181,594 with expected expenditures of $186,000. Typically, our LTFM is higher than that, but as you know, Royalton passed some LTFM bonds, and those are going to be up for paying those off by 2031. And then the medical assistance. So you can see, I told you not to pay attention to the beginning and the ending fund balances, but here I am now pointing it out. Currently, we are projected to have a bigger fund balance for MA, and we are needing to spend some of those dollars down, but we are looking to use some of those funds to purchase such as a sped van for the district. Scrolling down now, getting into Fund 2. So I've basically kept this flat, but my projection is that we're probably going to end up higher on the revenue side, that $569,685 in projected revenues. I do believe that's going to be higher due to the increase in the reimbursement rates for the meals that we're receiving. The legislative session did pass a new law that instead of having 3 months of expenditures for a fund balance, we can now have 6 months for matching our fund balance in Fund 2. So if that doesn't make sense, let me know, because we're projected at 136,000. So if you took our expenditures, divide that by 9, that number can now be 6 months times that expenditure amount. Hopefully that makes sense. It came out weird in my head, so hopefully it made sense out loud. All right, so Fund 4 overall, we're projected to have a great year again in Fund 4. But with school readiness, we are looking at having a deficit. But with the school readiness, that is also the students, you bring them into the district, you get them accustomed to the district, and you want them to grow. They are the future revenue of Royalton School District. I don't like to talk about students as revenue, but it is also the business that we're in. Without students, we don't have a school, obviously. Scrolling down further, Fund 6, we don't have any construction projects going on right now. And then Fund 7 is just going to pay off our past debt service. Other than that, that is the report for the FY24 adopted budget. Are there any questions?
So I'm gonna anticipate this might change when we bring it back in June, because after that session ends, we know for sure, and in case we can start to have an estimate of what unemployment might cost, if it were to have some sort of tails on it that we're not sure, we might have some of that change. We'll just see. And I will say that likely, we will have increased professional development required of us. So I anticipate some of those revenues coming down to it being more expensive with the read act.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too. There's a lot being talked about, such as the safe schools, as Dr. Burkamp just pointed out. I know that there's grants available, but those were kind of like a first come, first serve a few years ago. And I didn't see that Royalton was on that, but there might be some new grants coming out, especially for the cybersecurity piece of that. We'll definitely keep an eye out any type of grants we can apply for and get after those as soon as possible, because some of these things will be a first come, first serve, such as the unemployment piece. I forget the total amount, Dr. Burkamp, what was it, 135 million for next year?
Yeah, something like that, right? And that's only that pot, so I don't know, depends how many people apply, right? And how far it stretches.
Oh, really? They apply?
Yeah, I don't know that they have this. I know they don't have it fleshed out yet, so we'll learn more. This might be a learn as you go.
Yep, definitely. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on all that stuff and keep you guys abreast of any changes that, because I think a lot of this is, they don't necessarily know all the changes they're the unintended consequences, what we're calling it, right? But for now, we definitely know that we have funding for the unemployment piece, but the way that I calculated that is I took 65% of all our different salaries and benefits of our hourly staff over the course of a 3-month period, and put that as an expense for unemployment going into next year. I believe that's very conservative. I don't think we'll be near that high, but I think that's just in order for us to maintain or say this is where it is. That's what we had to do for now. But that will be flushed out as the year continues.
Did you keep the insurance the same? As
No, no, I increased insurance. I typically do, 3% on the salary side and I do 5% on the benefit side of things is what I increase that by. Now, this last year could have been astronomical. I think we were originally being quoted 32% increase to our benefits, but by going out and shopping those and bringing in Sandy, which I don't know if we talked about Sandy with the group, but she did a fantastic job of lowering our insurance rates down to, I believe, I don't know if Amy's in the room, but I think it was about 9% increase, which was fantastic. 7?
Yep.
See, even better. Yeah,
Yep.
she's fantastic. So I think 5% is very fair, and we'll continue to work with, all the all the insurance companies and try to keep that number low for our staff. Excuse me.
All right. Anything else for Scott? All right, thanks again, Scott.
No problem.
Track and field building updates.
Want to know?
Could you go to the ours, David, for today, please?
You're too far.
Am I?
So you can go with that.
There we go. Good evening, Chair Hofstad, Superintendent Werkamp, board members. This is where we were last time we were here to finish this up. First look at our current building conditions. The elementary, the overall condition of the building inside and out is very good. With continued general maintenance, we'll give many more years out of that building. Detriment will be growing out of it someday. High school, middle school, the overall condition of the building is very good inside and out also. Continued maintenance, same thing, we should be really good for years to come, just like any building to kind of keep it up. Upcoming building needs, elementary needs new boilers, the existing system is aging and obsolete. We had 3 quotes, I think we went through this. We awarded that to Climate Makers, and again, we had a discussion on the boiler topic, basically. Continued carpet replacements as needed. Many floors are aging at that building, especially, and a lot of them are 96 vintage. Holding up, but time is coming. Continue LED upgrades in classroom and corridors. That's a power savings and a kind of a comfort feature for the classrooms too. The LED lighting is a better light for students. The roof is assessed annually. Preventive repairs are done as needed. Roofing techs advise the oldest parts of the roof could last beyond 2030, but we should start setting some funds aside for roofs as we talk here. Section of the sidewalk on the north side of the building should be replaced this summer. I actually had we're getting quotes on that too. Upcoming needs at the high school, middle school. Continue to upgrade LED lighting in classrooms and corridors. Flooring replacements were needed. The section of sidewalk by door 11, this will be the media center, is in tough shape, probably nearing that 30-year mark. A lot of voids in this, so we're looking at replacing that. Continued maintenance and upkeep of our tire parking lots and road system is very necessary to keep it in good shape. Upcoming building needs at the high school continued. Roof is assessed every year. The oldest section of the building are going to need some roofing in about 2030 also. We're going to try to nurse them out as long as we can with good maintenance and keeping an eye on them every year by some educated eyes. There are 4 original air handlers in this building. Still that are up. Still running, but could be upgraded in the near future. As you can see, we have a barn fan running tonight. We have the air conditioning in this area is broke down. So it's a kind of a fun fact, if you're interested. Between the 2 buildings, we have 54 cooling units to maintain. So there's a lot going on. Say, you have a 1 in 54 chance there's gonna be one broke down. The replacing of air handler 2 at this building would be probably the first one of the 4 old ones I would go after. Continued leveling and reseeding of the ball fields on this property. They get out of whack over the years. It's sprinkler breaks and, you know, added soil and this and that. And just ground shifting and whatnot. So every once in a while, you gotta bring in a technician to straighten things out, so you get nice flat ball fields again. The district's buildings, all buildings are in very good condition. That includes the bus warehouses to maintenance sheds and dugouts and everything are. We watch them very closely, keep them up. I mean,
Yeah,
dig
just,
into that, Al?
just, yeah, tell them how it works. If you want. Scott, you want to participate as well in the LTFM plan?
Absolutely, yeah.
You want to start us out with it, Tony?
I can't even see it.
Well, you can just talk about the premise of what it is.
Oh, yeah, long-term facilities maintenance, that's a lot of monies that come into the district to help us maintain these buildings and grounds. There's a very wide area of topics we can, that touches, you know, that we can spend that money on.
So the state requires us to report a 10-year every year. So you give them your estimation of what's gonna happen, but really what we're most concerned about is our current and next year. But they require you do it every year for 10 years, you have a 10-year plan. Scott, anything more you wanna say about that?
Yeah, no, so like you nailed it on the head. So they typically just pay, really, when I say they, MDE, they really look at the first year. So right on that report, if you guys can see it, you know, it has the base year. So we'll take the base year and then we'll look at next year. And then Tony and I will work with each other on what needs he has coming up for the school district and try to free up some of those for any of the projects that he had just mentioned before. You know, talking about the updates of the state of the art or state of the I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the way the buildings are currently right now, replacing some of those floors, the lights, a lot of those things. So those would go into our LTFM plan, HVAC maintenance. A lot of those things would go into this plan every single year. But we tried to set aside, and Tony mentioned this earlier, set aside a portion of your LTFM to hopefully build up for your roofing project that Tony's estimating around, you said 2030 timeframe. So that's what we have to do, and that's due by July 15th or every single year. So Tony and I will start working on this and we'll get this submitted to MDE.
Anything past about year 3, maybe even year 5 is I want to call it an educated guess, but you try to foresee the future the best you can.
So, Scott, I'll let you jump in now to talk about an update on that track and field presentation that we had in January.
All right, I'm not gonna let Tony off the hook just yet. Tony,
Okay.
can you cover the pre-construction services, the bid that you did for that, or not the bid,
Sure.
but the work you did for that first?
Here, I reached out to our, they were called Winkleman Construction when we had them here for our project. They've now changed their name to Bradbury Stam. Just as I know those guys and they're comfortable working with them just to get our feet wet, so to speak, you know, so it's gonna take to get going. And these are the numbers they came up with that we would have to spend just to get to a point to get a plan, so we would know what it would cost actually.
All right. Thanks, Tony. And I'll jump in from there too. So those costs that Tony was just talking about, and we're not saying to go out to referendum or anything like that. We're just talking about the track and field update of we went out and got the information. Just want to bring it to you back as a board. But if the school chose to move forward with this plan, either one of these plans or these service engineering teams, these costs could be included in whatever funding source the district wants to move forward with, if they chose to go with updating the track and field. So Dr. Weirkamp and I, we went to our finance advisors, Ehlers. When it comes to finance advisors, I mean, talk about bonding or what type of outside sources can we do for a project like this? So we went through the different options, and those were to resurface the track, build out the track was option 2, or to actually move the track up the hill and have a new facility and football stadium and a track there. So going through those options, option 1 was to surface existing track with capital facility bonds using operating capital. So the annual operating capital revenue, $215,000. This does qualify for ag to school credit, which would be very important for our district in Royalton due to a lot of the farmers we have around the area. So we could do a 7-year term or a 10-year term. And then also option B would be to do LTFM, deferred maintenance bonds. Again, we already do have some of those currently running through 2030. That we did in 2016. That's about 160,000. This does again qualify for Ag to 2 school credit and MDE approval through LTFM process. Now this next slide is showing the LTFM deferred maintenance bonds, and you can see by 2031 is when they end out. So the existing bonds are the orange bars there. And if we were to go with LTFM bonds, it would eat into our LTFM dollars that much further with a darker blue line, and then adding 2 years on to our current LTFM bondage, or bonds that are going through now 2033 if we went that route. I can get into recommendations later, but I'll start right there. As I would not recommend using LTFM bonds even further. I would say let the dust settle on the current LTFM bonds, and if we wanted to reevaluate it at that point, we certainly could. All right, so getting into option 1, surface existing track. We can also do lease purchase, lease levy, or general fund. That's a 10-year term, does not qualify for Ag to 2 school credit, so I would not recommend that one based on our population of Royalton. So there is the challenge of finding the financing, and then based on a $200,000 house, annual tax impact would be about $30. On the $4,000 ag homestead acre, the impact would be 33 cents per acre. So option 2, redo existing track and field. This may bring in some additional options that we have, but so we would possibly redo that track, and the approximate cost is 1.9 to 2.1 million, but we would be able to have full practice experience and allows for track meets to be held. So we do have the certificates of participation, or COPs as we call them. So this is lease levy or general fund. The current lease levy authority, 209,000 at 989 APU or $212 allowance. Not currently using any lease levy right now. And if you recall, we could also lease levy the Mid-State building, but we chose not to do that as a district. These do come in 20-year certificates at 175,000 annual payments, but does not qualify for Ag to 2 school credit, which would be tough to pass with our population in Royalton. So option 2 for also redoing the existing track and field. Option A, certificates of COPs, lease levy. We had already talked about that, 200,000 annual tax impact, $58, and on the ag homestead acre tax impact, 64 cents. Okay, option B, voter approved school building bonds. So this would be referendum, 2.3 bond qualifies for ag to school credit, and then 14-year bonds can qualify for debt service equalization aid, and the tax impact on a $200,000 house would be $24, and then it would be 8 cents on the homestead acre tax impact. Next slide is we talk about redoing this with a referendum. You can see current referendum are going through 2035, but that little blue mark on the top, starting if this were to pass, or if we went out and it passed, then that little blue mark at the top of these bars would increase slightly our debt payments, but it would add on basically, a year and a quarter at the end of our payments for the debt equalization payments. Does that make sense? All right, so then option 3 is talking about that new complex in that area that we have on top of the hill. Obviously, this be new track and football field complex in the northeast corner of the school property. This includes doing earthwork, site demo, utility extension, seeding, irrigation, track service. This would allow for obviously to be host track meets and have a great practice facility as well. But the approximate cost on this is 3.8 to 4.2 million. And our options for funding that are voter approved school building bonds, 4.4 million bond, qualifies for Act 2 school credit, 15-year bonds, and can qualify for debt service equalization aid. The tax impact on a $200,000 house is $40, and then the ag acre 13 cents. So the new complex, showing that same chart from before, the blue section at the top of each of these lines would add on the debt payment. And then you can see here that we'd add about 2.5 years onto our existing debt payment schedule. So the next line is talking about when could we take care of any of these options? Whenever we talk about referendum, this needs to be done in November. But the capital project or levy, the bond elections, these can be done February, April, May, August, November timeframe. And then lastly, there is a summary down there for the option 1, 2, and 3, and the different options that we have on there. Now we're in the discussion phase of everything. And Dr. Weirkamp, did you want me to continue with this, with my recommendation, or where we're at?
No, I think at this point, the board can have time to discuss this, I think, and ask any questions.
So let me ask this. So basically, any one of these that we want to do need to go to voter approval, correct?
Not necessarily, no.
That first one.
Just the first one? Would not,
so the LTFM ones we can extend, but that's where I would say if we did that as a school district, we would be handcuffing Tony and his crew to be able to continue the work to maintain the buildings the way they are. And that also goes with the capital as well too, because Dr. Weirkamp is, coming in and she's really wanting to make sure that our curriculum is up to date for the students. And then also we do have those LTFM bonds that we had already used. So if we did that even further, I personally feel like we'd be handcuffing Dr. Weirkamp and the principals and the programs to continue with their education and for the students. And then also with LTFM, I feel like that if I recommended that to you, I'd be handcuffing Tony and his crew to maintain the beautiful buildings we already have in Royalton. So I think the main and only option, in my opinion, is the referendum. Doing the referendum and going out for that. But obviously, we're not here to tell you, say, this is what we want to do. This is us giving you the information and then as a board discuss that and see if this is something you want to push forward with, because we can certainly employ AILers to come in and push this forward if the district chose to do that.
Sure. Can we go to option B, the LTFM chart where it's showing that, keep going down. I just don't know if everybody knows what I know, because I was on the board when we passed that bond. But when we built this part of the school, we opened up a bunch of roofs and they weren't in very good shape. So we didn't have the money to fix them right. We could have band-aided them or we redid them. So that's all that orange, that's basically the roofs that are gonna wear out in 2030 that we did in that bond. That's what's, it's up there now.
No, she moved it.
No, it's right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what that is. And, so when Tony says that, you got roofs that are gonna last in 2030, that's what clicks in my head, is that by time we get there, we're either gonna have to start working on them before then, or it's gonna be time then. So yeah, it's because I was on the board and I know what they're talking about. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I don't know if everybody knew that. So
There's cost, there's costs involved in maintaining them, and there's costs involved in waiting. Every
Yeah.
year, things go up 6-8%.
So I think, I don't personally like option one. I think if we're gonna do it, let's do it so they can actually host track meets and it can be a legit track. I like option two, possibly putting it out there for a vote to see what the taxpayers think. Whether or not it were to get voted in or not, at least then we try to accomplish something for the students. I don't know that there's any other school in our conference or section that does not have a legit track. I think we're the only one.
I don't know. I don't know what the stomach is for the voting public.
I don't either. I'm not sure.
I wish I did know.
What I'm in, but
Yeah, I hate to spend $20,000 to go out there and see and then have an outstanding no. You know? But if it was yes, then people would want that, but that's where I'm at, is that.
Is there a way to test the, I mean?
You can survey your community, so, everywhere I've worked, we brought in Morris Letterman. And they actually survey your community to get a feel for what they want, and they're experts at designing surveys, like that's their work. And they actually call people on the phone. I don't know how they still do that, because everybody has cell phones, but at least the last time I used them, they still were calling. And then they take the temperature of your community.
Springstead did that when we did this.
Did Springstead did it for you? Yeah.
yeah, so personally, I think that's something that, let's say a July meeting or July work session that we talk about and see, if, as we're talking about this, because this isn't the only thing that we have going on, but I can't list the 20 other things that I'm thinking of right now, but if we're gonna look at doing something like this, and this comes to what the board wants to do, but there's probably 15 or 20 other projects that we could talk about doing with the community and survey it at that point as well. Just looking at.
I mean, kind of set a priority scale.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a great work session
Can we
topic.
do that in August though versus July?
Sure.
Just because usually we try to have one meeting in July and make it good.
No, but
What's the next?
set a priority list. I like that.
Yep. And then would it be possible also to have you at that work session come in and talk about what that actual 10-year plan looks like? The first couple of years, we talk about every quarter pretty much here, but what that really looks like as we're looking at a 10-year plan, and budgeting for us is the big key to that. And obviously you work with Scott a lot, and Dr. Weir can't do that, but I think that'd be good for us to know as well. Really what our buildings are looking like and where we're going with that. So
Might assume, if the 4 air handlers that are left to replace in this building, a 10-year plan is probably gonna include all 4 of them, right?
It
Or
could,
3 of them.
yeah, certainly could. They're not in extreme, well, the one, the air handler 2 is in a spot where it'd be nice to upgrade it, because the air conditioner that serves that one also was put in 96. So that one has.
That's not a
R22.
very efficient unit, then, is it?
No, and the efficiency is down, and then the cooler, or the refrigerant that's in it is R22,
22.
which is not getting very tough to get. So the scenario you could have happen is that air conditioner dies, and then you get a price on a new air conditioner, and they'll say, oh, by the way, you got to replace a coil in the air handler. Well, do you really want to put all that brand new stuff on a 1970 air handler? So it just snowballs.
Nobody's driving around a 1970 car anymore.
No, they're classics.
One thing I think about too, though, is 2030 really isn't that far away, which is a weird number, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's like only 7 years, and then you have roof repairs.
Yeah,
potentially.
roof
That's
repairs,
expensive.
another one that, just came to my mind right now as I'm standing here is, at 2030, what does all this concrete and asphalt we have look like? Is that, I keep on crack filling every year and whatnot, but highways crumble after so many years. I mean, we could be looking at And, you know, I mean, there's so many things that come up, it's just, you can't think of them all. So that's why that 10-year is a vision.
Well, I suppose some things make it beyond that and some things become more urgent, yeah.
Can I ask a question, just to catch up to speed? This kind of seemed to be, on the road and running when we joined in January. This was on the January meeting. So where did it get traction? Like, did it come
So,
from the community or how did
yes.
we even get it to the January meeting where this presentation was first given?
Yep, so both the track team and the track coach last year had talked about that because like they said, we are one of the only places that don't have a track. And we had, what was it 7 or 8 state participants for track last year? Something like that. It was somewhere there. And so they had brought it up and then some of the parents had talked about it as well. So like, well, I don't know what it would cost or whatever. So yeah, January was the first time we're like, hey, can you tell us what this looks like? So it's not going anywhere, but it's of interest to kind of figure out, hey, is this possible? Is there an appetite for it or not?
And would there be a variation besides resurface existing track or make this $4 million new sports complex? Can we take that space and just put a track there that's legal?
That's option 2.
That is option 2?
Well, option two
Okay, I
is,
missed that.
option 2 is moving this one
Well, you-
into that hill.
You'd have to move it a little bit to get the regulation
Cause-
lanes, but it'd be the same spot.
Well, it'd be, I'm talking about the new spot. Like,
Like
what,
up
how
on
much
the
does it
hill?
cost to just put a track in that new spot? Not the football field and the
Well,
multi-faceted.
the only thing about that though is
building.
if you put a track with a, what are you putting in the center of it? A field.
These
It's
are
generally the
practice.
size of your football, and then you're still gonna have your stands. So you're, 'cause people are gonna have to sit to watch. So I don't know really how much you would save by not having it be a football, used for a football stadium. You still have to have your stands, still have to have concessions, you still have to have,
Well, if you're gonna
All of that.
spend that kind of money, you should have real bathrooms.
and you probably have, well, we probably have to have some. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
know, but yeah, we'd have to think about that. too. How you get,
And that's why I was saying, like, I think we need to talk about this at a work session again to talk through some of that stuff, because is there a stomach for doing that, whether it's 700,000 to the 4 million or whatever that is? Or is there a combination of stuff that we want to do with that? Is the baseball field still good? You know, all those other things, you know, as a board, I think we need to prioritize what some of that stuff is and figure out, you know, this is just one thing that's been brought up, but there's a whole lot of other things that go into that too. You know, one of the things as a board, we have to look at long-term plan too for the school. So if we put a track up on that hill up there, are we stopping ourselves from expanding this school or putting an elementary school there eventually? You know, and having to redo that cost in 20 years, 25 years, something like that. So I think those are some things that we have to work out at the work session, if that makes sense.
Those are very much educated estimates from those Bradbury Stam too, you know, the 3.8 to 4.2, that could very well be 5.2 million. After a study and a plan is built.
Well, after it takes a year for us to figure out what we're doing too, I mean, that's.
Yeah. a little addition.
That's what, I wasn't on the board when this all got approved, but I was going to the meetings and as the months went by, the cost just kept on going up. It's crazy how that works, but you get a big enough building or a big enough deal, it's just like I suppose it's economy too. If we were in a falling economy, it'd be different, but at that time it wasn't,
So
so.
it follows the inflation number very
Yeah.
close, and it's usually the building and construction is 6 to 8% a year increase.
All right, any other questions for Tony or Scott? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next is band cruise discussion.
Chairman Hofstad, members of the board, Superintendent Werekamp, coming to you for a discussion item and for your information. Received a proposed Royals band trip for March of 2024. The band trip has gone in 2017. And it was supposed to go in 2020, got canceled due to COVID. For your consideration, they'd be leaving in March of March 25th of 2024, returning March 29th, which would be Monday through Friday. Estimated cost is approximately $1,700 for students. They go on this cruise and they, it includes all the meals, entertainment activities. They actually perform on the cruise ship and have music lessons from musical professionals, nationally recognized music educators. They provide ratings and comments to the bands as they play. They have an awards ceremony, trophy, and awards for the students. And so it is a discussion item for the board to consider. One of the things to consider is most of our trips are proposed for June, where it does not interfere with the student in class school calendar. This band trip falls in March, so it's a consideration for the board that it happens during the school year, which is a little bit different, which is why we wanted to bring it to the board for discussion. And for you to take some time and evaluate and come up with some questions that you might have or whatever, but we wanted to present this to get the discussion going for the now and into June.
And in the past, it's been in that March timeframe for,
The two that we had, the one that went in 2017 was in March, and the one that was scheduled for 2020 was also approved for March as well.
and the students fundraise for that, so it's $1,700 per student.
Students fundraise for the band trip, correct?
Are there any other schools that do this? You know, for a cruise that's looking at music, and you probably don't know, I don't know, but are there any other schools around here or, you know, within the state that do the same thing to go through and get rated and do some of that stuff as they're?
I'm fairly certain because of the company that we use is more local, that there are bands in the state of Minnesota that do this. None that I know of in the immediate area around us.
And usually trips they try to schedule more around breaks, like summer, winter break, things like that. Like our choir trip is in June, the Spanish teacher takes a class usually in June. So that's why we just want to bring it back, because this is a little bit different since kids are out of school.
I'm just wondering, would more kids have an opportunity to go if it was, say, in like June, that maybe they didn't, you know, the kids, I don't want to miss a week of school, so they forgo an opportunity to do something like this, or sports or other activities. Do you think I'd hate for somebody to miss out on it if they, you know, more could attend in like a June. But I don't know what those numbers are. I'm sure you guys don't know either, so.
Is that the only option, is the one in March? Or are there other options?
It's the only one that was presented to me. I'm not sure if there is a specific band trip season that they abide by, but
If you're getting other bands to go on it, I suppose they're booking a whole ship, so you can't.
I'm guessing that this company is scheduling out band trips throughout the spring with different schools around the state and around the country. The question would be, is it available? Is the band cruise available in June? You know, is that program available in June? I do not have that information. But our trips typically have been, you know, choirs going in June 12th to New York. We have the Spanish trip to Costa Rica is in June. Actually, all of the Central and South American trips have been in June, and the choir trips have all been in June as well. this is the one that stands out is that the timing of it, the timing of it is during the school year. There are some companies, you know, like for like a Washington DC trip, they'll plan it specifically like during inaugural week or whatever, so they're out there for the inauguration of the president. Those are things that are specific to the time frame of the school year. That I believe there's like the Cherry Blossoms tour where they're doing that in March for Washington DC. So there are trips that are centered around a certain event or a certain time of the year. But I am uncertain if this is exclusive to that time frame.
So are we looking for approval for this thing?
It's just discussion.
So are these dates that are on here movable? Says plan of attack, register at meeting in May of 2023, final numbers due Wednesday, May 31st. We have to know exact numbers.
There would have to, yes, there would have to be some alterations to the
Okay.
plan.
Because we don't approve it today. I ain't gonna be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been 6 years since they've gone in March. You know, and for those that were on the board, the COVID stuff was interesting trying to get refunds and things like that back from.
Everybody had that.
It was very difficult, and I think we were one of the fortunate ones, and I believe we got about 50% of that trip back for the families. So,
Not right away.
and not right away. Yes, it went through attorneys and. So, I think the value of the trip is there. I think there's a good opportunity for kids. It's just a matter of the question of the timing of it during the school year.
So, and this is really up for discussion, you know, what, do you guys have any thoughts about? That, you know, like, I kind of agree with you, if it's possible to do it in June, I think it might be better to do it then, but we also let, you know, if you're a student athlete in 3 sports, you're gone for about a week during the school year, not, you know, not all 1 week, but you're gone that far for an extracurricular activity out of school time as well, so it's not far fetched in my opinion to do that, but you know, I don't know.
You have BPA nationals that take place during the school year. FFA nationals take place in the fall of the school year, so there are other opportunities that happen.
The state
That
football
happened
team
during
would lose three days pretty easily.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you know,
Yes, so there definitely are other opportunities that do take kids out of school for, and this is educational. I mean, there is a learning component to this as well, so.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Do you have any idea how many kids would be interested in doing this? Like what they've done in the past or? Just curious.
I'd say it was between 30 and 40 the last time that they actually went.
And what grades is this?
They had. Who was in here somewhere where must be an active band participant. Must have had a grade average of a B during band during the 23-24 school year. They must participate in the pep band. At games, good standing regarding behavior. No academic or chemical violations from the initial deposit through the leaving date of the trip, and they must be on track to graduate.
Wasn't it 9-12? You know, I guess I made an assumption it was 9-12.
Yeah, it's high school.
It's not middle school.
It's just, I thought, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I guess I would just, I mean, I'd leave it to the discretion of the parents. It sounds like he has good stipulations in there. Academic wise, where they need to be at.
It looks like they need an answer though, because they're going to continue with this, they need to know by May 31st, right? 2023.
Or they have to make some alterations to the
Right.
timeline of it.
I mean, if we say no now. And then they can't get one in June, then they can't come back to this one by the looks of it. Oh. I mean, I think like Tyra said. We say it's good to go and the parents can decide what they want to do with their kid, right? You know, kids are gone a lot. I mean, if anybody has kids in golf, the kids are out of school a lot. You know, for that, so.
Well, so it's not on the agenda for approval, but,
Right.
I'm fine also saying, hey, we're good with that and we'll vote on it in June to approve it, but if we're in a consensus now to say, hey, go forward and start making plans, go do that too.
And then just do the official vote.
That way at least he can get it started, so.
Right, I mean, by the dates in here that he has, it says. By May 2023, then you need the final numbers. By May 31st, I don't know how you have those final numbers already.
In a week,
That's like
right?
a week away, but,
He may have
Very
already started getting those.
and yeah, maybe he has those numbers already, I don't know.
That could be. But I don't know,
I mean, I'd be fine with it. I don't see a reason they couldn't go in March. Parents can say no if they're against it and.
I don't see a valid reason to delay it.
Right,
So we can just bring it back for formal approval in June, like we do all trips, but we'll let him plan.
you know, say like Chris, know he can move forward with it.
you're good with that, right?
I'm okay with it. Right. We must have good numbers.
That's there. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I'd rather do that than just hold them at bay and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only for security.
And David?
And David, yes.
Michelle, if you want to pull that one up to the current date, please. Okay, so we had brought this in during the work session, so we're based on that information, you guys want to talk us through this?
All right. No, you want to talk, because there's to the rekey of the building. Per previous discussion that it was brought up that the rekey is the least expensive of all the options to start with. And this is basically as simple as getting a locksmith, the door specialist in here and start switching out cylinders and making a new key system for our exterior doors. And having a very select few people get those keys, and it would be a numbered key with a list of people that have them. And that was never really started out properly back in the day. When this key system was done, there's really no sign out sheet, so to speak, that was formally ever done. And the key system was 30+ years old. So that would be a good place to start with the outside keys.
I have one question on that, if I can. So if we rekeyed all the outside doors, how many keys would we have made?
I would say start with probably 10. You got building heads, even custodial staff. Myself would probably have one, but maybe the leads. And that's questionable too, because the fobs will get you in. You know, so it'd be a topic of discussions, you know, how far that key system stretches out. Yeah. So.
You could just make sure it's managed too.
Yeah.
So if you have 10 keys, you know who the 10 people are that have them when they come back,
Yeah.
whatever.
The system in place, yeah.
Right.
For when they leave, get it back.
Yeah, nothing, I mean, obviously, they're not chipped keys like a vehicle and they're whatever, you know, so you can track them, but you know, they do say do not copy. They're typically not a key that you just go to your local lumberyard and they don't have that key stock on hand. So they're secure as you can get, as far
You
as
still cut
a
them. Yeah,
Keys were
so-
different back in the 1940s than they are now, though.
Well, I'm not that old.
Oh.
But, you know, it's probably harder to get them, but yeah.
Yeah, you know, like at this building, we've got a sergeant key system. It's called an LF keyway. Very unique keyway because every time I need to make keys, generally the like central lock or even Rosinski door service doesn't have them on hand because there's just not many of the people using the LF keyway anymore. So they usually got to order them for us. So they're turning into,
You should probably just go to the neighbors, somebody, they're probably a couple.
yeah,
keys in
it could be some.
This house and that house.
Yeah, give me your AA3s and ones and.
So this, yeah. What do I do?
All right, number 2 was door access server and software, so that would be just. Replacing the server and door access system for the key fobbing. So, and then number 3 was the camera server. And then number 4 was adding the 48 additional cameras.
Okay,
So-
oh, right.
I came on the Saturday night to the FFA banquet. And the no parking sign was jammed in the door so that we could get in. So if we updated the server and software system, we could get to the point where the doors would just unlock and we could just walk in like we were supposed to, not have something jammed in the door.
Correct, yeah, so the new system has a nice actual calendar that you can go in and put in these one-off events.
So I always think when there's like they have a tournament or something and then there's a garbage can jammed in the door and I'm
It's
thinking.
usually a breach of communication too. Somebody will have an event. and They don't tell anybody they need the doors
Yeah,
programmed.
but
They don't think
so
about
anybody that's visiting, that's the first thing they see is the garbage can wedged in the door, you know?
Yeah.
Do
No,
you have remote access to it, like on YouTube? Like,
Actually, yeah,
somebody would call you.
Joel's got it on his phone. I personally don't dabble in the one we have right now because it is not fun to use. Joel's, it'd be like me teaching him the heating and cooling system.
Right. Well, there's a couple people that could get in or open it from
Yeah.
remote access.
The new one's much easier to
Yeah,
navigate.
well, yeah, this one, you can go in, put in the time with our current system. We go in, put in the time, we have to go and remember to take that time out, because if we don't, it'll just keep looping that until we do take it out. So every Saturday or every Friday, whatever the event is, that door will open unless we take it out. With this new system, we can go enter it in, and when that event is over, it's over. And that's, we would have to go and enter it in again if we wanted it for another Saturday.
Can this software like link with our activities calendar? Like if like, cause I know like they keep track of like when people need to use the gym or the cafeteria, could it like link to that system so it would know, or would you guys have to manually?
It wouldn't link, but we would just have to go and enter it in, but once that is set.
Right.
it's
It's just on and off.
Yeah, so we could go in and. If we know the calendar kind of at the beginning of the school year, you could go schedule the whole year and then go in and make changes through it out the year or. Anything that gets added, you could go add that in.
Even week by week, month by month would help. You know, I mean, the new system can do that, where this one we have now is. I can do that with our HVAC system. I can look at the sports calendar and I can say, okay, South Gym needs to run. Friday night for graduation. I already have that set. And I know it's gonna go away after the one time run.
So these numbers are the same, just in different order, and still recommending we do this over time because of the sheer cost of this. If you go to the next slide, please. I showed the revenue. I would really strongly recommend we use our Safe Schools dollars for this, because that's what they're designed for. Right now we have a fund balance, approximately, you know, it's not audited yet, so this is an approximate 79,000, and then we'll get the additional revenues of 37, and depending on if there's a grant option for us, if that comes through the legislature, we could still apply for dollars there too. But, that recommended Safe Schools revenue of 116,000 would cover the first two options, so we could at least start with that. And then, like I say, if there's grant money available, we can get that to cover the next two, otherwise we just wait and see where everything flushes out for dollars, and maybe do that the following year, or even over the course of the next 2. And then, I think that third, isn't our third slide, that just kind of reiterates the, just still figuring that we got a pretty good system now for our fitness center, and I think we're okay. And like I said, the new system, Bob's system would really help with that too. So, it's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, so, this one is up for approval if there's anything we do want to. So, I don't know. I personally, I'm a big fan of doing the rekey for sure. I would also like to do the server. Cause that would all be covered under the Safe Schools budget for this year. And then probably holding off on the camera server and additional cameras for subsequent years. But what are your thoughts?
If there was a grant that was available, is it one of them things where it was have to be on the ground and running to?
I don't know what this will be, because like I said, I'm unclear.
They haven't wrote it yet.
Yeah, if it's even a for sure thing. Like I said, I felt like one meeting, that's what I was thinking I was hearing, and then the other woman on a different was like, no, I don't know that there's additional, and Scott had heard that there was, that's why I just.
I had heard there was.
It flushes out, no.
So if we had this approved in May, we might even,
We might have money there that we could access to do all of it, you know? We would certainly try to get those dollars, like I say, it'll be a pot, you know, first come, first served kind of thing.
Another thing to consider, obviously, summer's approaching. This work is optimum to be done in summer months and get the bugs out, get the.
first day of school, nobody could get it.
Honestly, like,
I agree with what Ryan said.
So I have a couple concerns. The one I brought up before was the price of that software system is again $18,000 more than the highest cost that we came up with that we had for the original proposal. That's a lot of money. I get it. We want nice things in Royalton, right? We want that. Sounds like our biggest problem is having somebody turn it on and turn it off or whatever. And I guess I find it hard to believe that the $18,000 more than the most expensive system we were talking about is the only system that can, once you set it, turn on, that shuts off after that thing is done. I just find that really.
I think the original was just such an estimate. It wasn't that we went out for actual bid, it was just an approximate. So that first slide was probably understated grossly on its own. I don't think it was like all of a sudden it just magically was more money. I think it was just it was just an estimate without having actually talked to the people. And having them come in and look at our things.
and the first number came from a company and they were actually had the cheapest system, but it was a lot like what we currently have. Whatnot with having to go in and remove things, and it didn't have the nice calendar. The other two options that we received after that were very close in price, with this.
Actually, that's
So,
18,000 actually is. The 73 includes these 2 doors on early childhood to activate those, to get them to fob entrance. And then our security servers or our panels of building. We just discovered those are antiquated also. And those are in there also. So we took those 2 things out, we'd be right at very close to the high end bin.
And the second concern is the using up all the Safe Schools money. I understand we have that money there and we haven't used it a lot.
Yeah, you shouldn't carry a fund balance in Safe Schools, so it was surprising to me too, watching that had not been constantly used. What you can do is you can put social worker salaries there, you can do your building up, you know.
Right.
And so why that wasn't quoted there before in prior years doesn't make good sense to me. It's better to use that money. That's why they give it to you.
So I understand that money's there for that. We had that great presentation on the SROs last work session. And the money for the SROs can come from that as well. So if we have money for the building that can be put into building costs, which is the security and stuff like that. Why can't we save some of this money for an SRO? Because after listening to their presentation, it's a great partnership between the city and the school to come together, in my opinion, to have really an extra teacher in the building to teach a lot of life skills. I don't know why we want to spend all that money for this when there's other funds available to use towards this, when there maybe aren't some funds to use toward that SRO.
You can use general fund dollars for an SRO.
I just think,
Capital will be used up for other things and so will LTFM. So those two funding streams are gonna be challenging to put towards something like this, because we gotta get the boiler done at the elementary. We have science curriculum we're gonna have to buy this next year, and I'm nervous about our capital expenditure of trying to do all of this. 15,000 is no problem, but
right,
73 would be,
it
but
sounds
you can
like,
use general fund dollars too.
yeah, it sounds like we saved quite a bit of money on the boilers, because we went with the less expensive boiler system. Right. So I guess I would like an explanation better on the money side,
Go to that.
just because if we
No.
spend all of our safe schools money, when it comes time for SRO talk, it's gonna be like all of our safe school money's gone. So now we're gonna have to use that for something else.
What I would say to that though is, if we're going to approve this, it can come out of safe schools. And if we approve an SRO, that would come out of our general funds. If we save the SRO for safe schools, we're gonna spend this money if we approve anything out of this, out of the general fund either way. So I think either way, the money's gonna be spent from safe schools.
But this money
And
doesn't disappear, does it?
what's
You
that?
can carry a balance over, it doesn't disappear.
In what? Sorry.
Like this money doesn't disappear. So we have safe school money, right?
Yep.
If we don't use it all, then we use some of it now. And some of the general fund money towards this,
Mhm.
we still have some safe school money there. So when you're selling an SRO program to the community, you say, hey, we have safe school money that can be used towards this. The legislator put safe school money towards that, and we have it. And it's a program that we're sharing with the city, for some of that cost. The cost doesn't look as heavy on the school as if you're taking out the general fund balance. That's all. Because we've carried money over in safe schools, and all of a sudden we don't want to carry any money over in safe schools.
Oh, but it's not all of a sudden, it should have been that way. I've never seen safe schools.
Yeah, it had been voted wrong, so.
I've never seen them. I don't know,
Previously, we didn't know this
Yeah.
balance was even there, because it wasn't quoted accurately.
or
I,
code it how it could have.
yeah,
I mean,
I get what you're saying. Safe schools though is gonna tie us down more, that it would then have to be used for specific reasons. And it might limit what we can do with it if, let's say we didn't do an SSR or SSL or whatever,
SRO.
then we might be stuck. I mean, I'm sure we can find something to use it on, but.
So what did we spend our safe school money on prior than when we were spending it, what we were spending it on?
Haven't for a couple of years, it looks like.
Well, I
Prior.
had talked about coding and I don't know what happened, why it didn't happen, but coding a counselor there, it's taking that instead of it in your general fund, coding it to safe schools. So I'd have to go back and look at what all the expenditures were that came out of it. I couldn't tell you. And I don't know what, before I came, what was done with it.
Right.
I can't remember either.
So,
I know that we. I think we paid for some Alice training, yeah,
Probably.
just some of that stuff out of there.
Well, I guess that's a question. Is Scott still on?
Scott, you
Yeah, I'm
there?
still here. Yeah, I'm still here, and there's so much to add to this conversation that I don't even know where to begin.
So let me ask you
So-
maybe a simple question first is if we used safe schools for this and got a grant, could we move that money from, to put it against the grant versus the safe schools? And then the second question is if I don't want to say that. If we used general fund dollars to do the security update and still had safe schools money left at the end of the year, could we code that back to safe schools instead of the general fund?
Yes. Yes. So the only thing that we want to be wary of when it comes to a grant, we have specific deadlines of those grants and when we can spend those funds. However, if they're, say, approved for July 1, 2023 for the next 2 years, and this expenditures happen after July 1, then those expenditures would fall in that time frame. And then when it comes to the safe schools and the general fund, I mean, Dr. Werkamp's right. I mean, that shouldn't have been built up for so long, but we did code a counselor there last year. So during the audit, I can do a lot of different things as far as the coding of expenditures go, and to format them into the restricted areas of where the funds are that we receive from the state and federal. So the answer to your question is yes. And I would also add that from this presentation of talking about security upgrades and things like that, that is there are 24 hours of continuous security, where our SRO is going to be limited in the scope and time that they are there. So some of these things definitely need to be done. Starting with Rekey, I like that idea from the ward too. But we just want to be mindful of that SRO if that is something that the district pushes forward with, that it's going to be very limited in scope as far as the time, but the software and the integration of our cameras with that software would be 24/7 security. But to answer your question, Mr. Chair, is that yes, I mean, we can move forward with some of these things, and then I can do what they call a voucher adjustment based on whatever it is we get. And I just want to also add to the conversation too, a lot of the safety grants that were given, if anybody remembers a few years ago, is basically luck of that. Everybody put their name in a hat and they took it out and said, okay, yes, then Royalton, you get this safety grant. Well, a lot of those are due to be spent by June 30th of this summer. And I can tell you there's a lot of districts throughout Minnesota that have not spent that grant money. So that money is going to go back into a pool for districts such as Royalton now that we can bid on for that grant process. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of different grants and things out there, especially come after July 1, that we can go after to help solidify some of those things that we're talking about in the presentation today. But from the SRO standpoint, that's going to be ongoing costs that Safe Schools, frankly, will not have enough to cover that each and every single year. Just based on the estimates of other school districts and the SRO and the cost of that. But if that's something that we want to continue forward, we'll look at those funding options at that time.
Well, I guess another question that I have is, if we thought that there was grants for these things, and we were really looking at doing this, why did we never pursue any of those grants? And I've done a lot of not grant work, but I've worked with grants and fire department first response and all that. And that's like the number one thing you do when you're looking to buy something expensive like this, is, hey, let's see if there's any grant money there.
Right now, I've never known about other grants for this right now. There has been from MDE in the past, those have run out. Those were first come, first served, because in my last district, we wrote for one. And what they did is, we wrote it for every single building, 17 buildings. And they awarded the one that had the least need. So it was a frustrating process. So what I'm saying right now about a grant is this what I said I was hearing about the legislature might be passing. Like I said, I got to get clarification of that. So I don't know about other grants. I know, so when Scott's saying that, I'm not real sure what he's saying about other grants, unless he's referring to those other ones from MDE that aren't out there available right now, but went through that process of the first come, first
So I'm
served.
saying if there might be some available, we haven't even looked into them. I guess I don't understand why we haven't looked into grants for this, if there might be some available. And that would make sense to me. We had an issue in the town that I live in where we're looking for grants, the project started, right? The project started. All these grants weren't available to us anymore because you had to apply for them before you started the project. The project was $120,000 project that we had the funding for. But the person who had the project didn't look into these grants. We found out about them after the fact, and we lost out on a lot of money because we started the project already. So if what Scott's talking about might be available, I think it's in the best interest of the district to look into that prior to spending money that we may not have to spend.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so, and I guess I don't want the board to get, caught up on grants per se. So we're bringing forward to the board the needs or, the things that we're looking at possibly to improve the security of the school. If there's any other funding for any of what we bring to the board, just like we did talk about the track and field, we bring to you and present all the funding options. And as Dr. Weirkamp talked about, she's unaware of any grants and quite frankly, I'm unaware of any right now either, but it does not mean that we're not going to present to the board things that are necessary or the things that we're talking about doing to improve the security of the building. And if we did that, say July 1 and a grant came available November 1st, you can bet that we're going to apply for that and say, we did this project, would this fall under it? And MDE would then work with us to reimburse us those costs. So Dr. Weirkamp and I are emailed daily of things that is available through MDE. And then we work with them if we feel that there's anything that falls under that category, such as the curriculum that we had purchased, what was that, 2 or 3 years ago, Dr. Weirkamp? Where now we're going to be reimbursed for that. So
Well,
a
we
lot
gotta
of these things,
it has to pass the legislature tonight though first. Once the bill's passed, there's an opportunity. So let's just not jump ahead too much, but I don't want to get my hopes up and have them dashed, but there's an opportunity that our benchmark curriculum, they will reimburse us for that because it was purchased after July 1 of 2021. And so there's potential for that.
right. And that's my point, is that when these things come available to us, we will certainly keep in mind what we've done. And we will ask MDE to say, can you please approve these expenditures that we did for the Royalton School District? And I mean, the worst I can say is no.
And that was my thought too, was to talk about it and say, yep, we'll approve that, but let's wait and not do anything until July 1st so we can see, if the legislature does approve or MDE does approve a grant or whatever, it's in the next fiscal year. So it would, if we can use that money and it does become available, if a grant comes up, that we could use it because we started it that year.
So then we'd be approving doing the project, just not how to fund it yet?
I would say we would have to approve a funding source for it, but we could change that after July 1st if the grant came available.
Is administration recommending to do all the 5 things?
No, not right away. It's too
First two?
expensive. Yeah, just the first two to start.
Can I ask a question? Is the time sensitivity on this just due to the building coming into the summer months? That we want to move forward, right, while there's less people? But otherwise, there's really no other time sensitivity on all of these things that are listed, correct?
Keys maybe. Just have, we don't know who has keys.
Right,
So it would just be like the urgency that we feel to.
sure. I'm just wondering because of the legislation session, like, and all of that, that's hinging on capital expenses that could be coming down the pipe for us. So I was just wondering, I just want to have a bigger understanding of what the time sensitivities are for us, given that we're waiting on legislation session to end, so that we know what our expenditures are gonna look like, what our revenue from there, and what our revenues will look like, and how that's all gonna change. And so to me, this feels a little bit like a cart before a horse. I don't know how the process usually works. We approve it now and then we hope and pray that we're not upside down after legislation's finished, or.
Well, no, and it's a discussion because nobody's made a motion for it, right?
Right.
So, and this is the conversation that we have to have about this. And that's why I started out with, my thought is, either way, I think we need to do number 1 and number 2.
We
To
have-
secure our
yeah.
schools, because that's part of our strategic plan,
Yeah.
you know,
safe schools
and that's where we're going with that. So,
Sure.
And we have the funds for those two. To piggyback off of your question though, like scheduling, I'm guessing this isn't something we can call and say, hey, I want you to come next week, you know. Like I'm guessing they have to, right? I would guess. schedule out.
The rekey is obviously, hardware. You'll have a technician running around,
that could be done during a school day also, but. You know, anything you do is in a disruptive, changing out that door server software and whatnot. Other than training. And working bugs out, I mean, that could be done on the fly too, you know, during the school day, so to speak, the new cameras. You're talking about chasing wires and everything through the building.
We're
We
not doing
always-
that for a
Yeah,
while.
we always.
But for the first, like, let's say. We, like with Brian, how he said, well, okay, but don't start it till after July 1st. I would imagine it's easier for you to call and say, hey, can we schedule you to come out July 5th? July 10th. I'm guessing they need some lead time, is what I'm trying to get at.
And I guess my question on that, thank you, is. Can we do know for sure they can come this summer? Both of those?
Well, right, it could be even
Right,
longer,
'cause we-
depending on.
Right, I don't wanna put ourselves in a position where it causes trouble with when we have kids here, you know, just the.
Yep, traditionally, the longer you wait, the busier those businesses get, and you're on the back burner.
The other issue you could run into is. The quotes are only good for a certain amount of time, so. Should they have a price change, they'll honor the price now, but you wait too long. They may not honor the price.
Did they give us a time frame on that? Sometimes they do, they'll say it's good, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but.
All right, I think the horse is dead. Mr. Chairman, move that we do the rekey to the outside doors. And do the door access server and software, the ICT system. For the quotes of $15,073,372.21 out of the Safe Schools.
Can you just go back up again? 73, 372. 21.
Do we need to add to that motion that we will look into option 3 and 4 next year, like, or do we just leave
They'll
that,
bring it back. to us.
bring it back later? Okay,
They'll probably have different quotes by then.
probably. Well, I would second your motion, Randy.
Just write it down here. So. Do you want to amend that to say after, to start after 1 July?
No, I'll let administration do that.
All right. So I have a motion and a second to rekey the outside doors for $15,000 and upgrade the door access server.
Yeah, I don't know how stuck on the money we have to be, because I mean, if it comes in 42 cents more, I know we're gonna be upset. I just want everybody to know what I was moving, which ones I was moving, so.
So rekey the outside doors for 15,000 and upgrade server and software for 73, 372.21 and to come from Safe Schools. So discussion on that.
You know. The legislation hasn't passed yet, but if there happened to be more grant money that would come available, there is 2 more options that you could throw in there at some point too. You just don't know what, I mean. They're in conference committee right now. For all I know, they're gonna say Royalton schools get $8 million. I don't know, but I doubt it, you know? No. I just think this,
Question, you guys.
go ahead.
Is why we're spending all that money for that, I mean, just. Money can be used for other things. Especially when we
But
pay
Lucas,
for it.
I think what Ryan was trying to say before, which,
I understand what Ryan was trying to say.
oh. But, so if you spend money out of the general fund for a resource officer out of the Safe Schools Fund, or you spend money for rekeying off out of the general fund, do you think that that public sentiment would be better to use? Is that what your argument
Yes.
is?
Yep.
Okay,
And the reason that is because I feel that people that don't want it are gonna come back and say, we're spending all this money out of the general fund. And we could be using it for something else. And we could use general fund dollars for this and share the cost. I'd like that to be on record.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons I asked Scott about that. So so we could also amend this to approve as general fund dollars. And if we have Safe Schools money left over at the end of the year, we could use that against and do a voucher adjustment against this, depending on what's there. Is that right?
But either way, dollars end up going the same way. It's just public perception when you're trying to kick something off the ground that they've never spent money on before. You say, hey, we have saved school money, right?
can I just ask the question?
Sure.
So if we didn't do an SRO, and that money sits in there for another year?
Oh, we could amend it again.
Oh, okay.
You can take out of the. Scott said you can take out of the general fund and reimburse. Things,
You just code it,
But
so
would
you just change your expenditure code.
so if we use. General funds though, and then let's say nothing else happens,
Then you can move it out. You can.
you can. Okay, so you can move it both ways.
Then, yes, so
Okay,
if we use and say, hey, we're gonna approve this, because money won't get spent for a little while anyway,
Right.
it could come to that.
I just want to make sure you could go both ways with it. I didn't know you could go. I know it's easier to pull from general to
Because
specific, but
this,
going from.
this is allowed, listen, this is allowable expense for safe schools, and so is an SRO. All of those are
Right.
allowable for safe schools, whereas and so are counselors and those. Whereas like a third grade teacher is not.
Right,
allowable.
but if I'm just saying, if we use. General funds and then nothing else gets out of safe schools and we have a balance. Can we take that safe schools and refund general?
Yeah, code it back.
Okay, yeah,
Understanding is
Yep.
yes.
okay, that's what I was,
That's why I asked that question.
okay. I was
That's why I
thinking
don't
you were
understand why we
asking
want
the
to
other
drop the
way.
balance and save schools to zero. But I don't understand why we do that. Other than telling people that there's no money in there would be the only reason I see.
Also, I mean, I would be fine putting it against the general fund as well. But it's up to you as the motion, or if you want to amend that to come from the general fund instead of from the state
Well,
school.
part of it.
State schools funding.
Bro.
I understand what he's saying, so I changed to general fund.
We're doing that all the time. We're taking money from here.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
it's,
this, you know, that happens.
I didn't understand your argument before, now I do, so
Are you good with that second?
Kind of, but kind of, I don't know why we would pause what we were working on when we don't really know if we have an interest in an SRO. That's kind of a big
but we could
question mark.
record it
Well,
later.
what this
I mean,
does is.
I
we-
guess it doesn't really matter, but
Well, this allows us to use general fund, right? So that's anything dollars. And if we do something with an SRO later, we have funding from safe schools. If we don't do anything with an SRO later, the safe schools money is gonna pay for this rather than the general fund.
I mean, it kind of doesn't sound like it matters, but
But that's still the question. You have to second the amendment as well.
sure.
Okay.
Is there a, sorry.
Absolutely.
Is there a time frame that we need to make the transfer if we don't do anything with safe, like
Before the end of the next fiscal year.
fiscal? So if they start this, let's say they come on June. By June 30th, we need to make the transfer, or
Scott, are you still available?
I just wanna make sure we don't miss that, and then we
He had
said,
to jump off, I know, for a minute, so I don't know.
Yes,
General
I'm here.
If the work is done in June and we decide July 15th that we have the grant money or something, can we move it out of that even though it's in the next fiscal year?
Yes,
Or do we
we have up until November. Go
Till
ahead.
we audit, right? Till the audit gets
Yes.
complete?
okay, I
November
just don't wanna
30th.
miss it as a deadline, so I'd like that to make sure we get that on like an additional agenda, just to make sure we don't miss any deadline of transferring funds if we don't use Safe Schools for something else.
But it looks like Safe Schools rolled over from year to year, and we're able to use it now, so it's not like we don't use it, we lose it.
I'm talking reimburse back to the general,
Changing the code.
changing the coding.
Yeah, I think that happens every day for Scott. and
It probably
isn't
does,
something
it's
that-
just not something I'm used to seeing it
Yes.
go the other way.
All right, so any other discussion from that? All right, so I'll read this again. So the amended motion from Director Hackett and second from Director Roaring is to rekey the outside doors for $15,000 and upgrade the server and software for 73,372.21 and to come from general fund dollars currently. All right. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Awesome. Thank you for the discussion on that.
Tony, we're up for the sale of equipment. Tony, you're up for sale of equipment, so I'm gonna do that really fast. I don't, I'm just.
We'll do it, Tony.
Sorry.
Are you freezing?
Well, you have two of them. You've got that one over there too.
I would do it, but I'd probably break something.
Trip on the cord.
Or that.
It'll shut off. Quiet.
The model over here.
I won't leave it back.
All right, so next on the agenda is approval of sale of aging equipment.
There's no slide.
Oh, no slide? Okay. We've got just a small arrangement of, or arrangement of miscellaneous old stuff to get rid of. Consists of about, I think, 9 or 10 4-foot 4-drawer file cabinets, a bunch of old Verco chairs. Most of them are kindergarten type height, little tykes, miscellaneous colors, probably 30+ years old and been being replaced with new stuff and piling up in storage. What else is on there? An old roll of carpet that's enough for about 600 square foot room, but it's broad loom like this. Kind of a weird color. It's actually vintage 1996 from that edition. Been around that long. And it's not big enough for classrooms. Classrooms are always about 900,000 square feet. Small office, maybe, but I prefer to not use it and put carpet tile in future rooms, you know, the squares. Get rid of that. I have to look at that list. What else is on there?
I don't remember, some chairs, I mean.
Mostly furniture,
What's that?
mostly furniture.
Yeah, old furniture and.
Not worth much, but what do you,
Yeah.
because you're estimating it'd be very little.
Very, yeah, we're talking $200-300 if we can get a, say the 50 cents a buck a chair. $5 a file cabinet, just to move it out of storage. Because right now we have it in our warehouse. And we need that space for our lawnmowers and fertilizer and such.
Motion to approve. That's the way we wrote it.
Second.
Director Bowman, Director Trout. Any other discussion with that one?
I thought about selling it via the district's Facebook site, just give the pictures to Michelle and people that are interested. It wouldn't even be a bidding thing, I don't think, just put $1 on them or move them out. It's better than, it's good material, but not good for us anymore.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, is how are we gonna advertise that?
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other discussion with that one? All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the sale of aging equipment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Awesome. We can get some.
Thank you, Tony. Graduation calendar date change.
All right, Michelle, you're gonna have to blow that. I broke my cheaters at our AP meeting this afternoon, so I'm out. I'm officially blind until I can make it to Walmart. This would take the May 10th date, which is orange on there, which is a no school day, and it would move it to May 24th. And then move graduation to Thursday, May 23rd, allowing for the moving graduation off of that Friday before Memorial Day and the traffic that we face in this area. Moving grad bash to that, it allows families the 4-day weekend. Something that we talked about at the board work session earlier this month.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Director Bauman, second by Director Roy. Any other discussion on that? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, approval of donations by resolution. All right. So resolution for acceptance of gifts to the Royalton School District. So member introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Whereas all information is included in your packet, the Royalton American Legion has generously donated $300 towards the class of 2023 scholarships that will be split into two $150 gifts. The Lang Klish family has generously donated $500 towards the class of 2023 scholarships that will be split into two $150 and two $100 gifts. And Royalton Education Minnesota has generously donated $600 towards the class of 2023 scholarships that will be split into two $300 gifts. Additionally, the Rice Sportsman Club has generously donated $300 to the Royalton Public Schools High School Visual Arts Program for the completion of a wildlife mural in the activities hallway. An anonymous donation of $1,000 has been given to use towards the Royalton baseball teams. Doug Procott has generously replaced the sand to the long jump pit, providing the equipment, labor, and sand to complete the project. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Mrs. Carlson a grant awarded in the amount of $250 to support the STEM Kits project. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Hammer's grant awarded in the amount of $250 to support the academic enrichment project in her classroom. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Hammer's grant awarded in the amount of $258 to support the STEM Building and Brain Puzzle Ideas project. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Larson a grant awarded in the amount of $350 to support the Kindergarten Life Skills and Social Emotional Supports project. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Heminger a grant awarded in the amount of $400 to support the academic enrichment project in her classroom. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Billig a grant awarded in the amount of $450 to support the preschool STEM and literacy project. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Kloss a grant awarded in the amount of $450 to support preschool social and emotional projects in her classroom. The Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Garrett's a grant awarded in the amount of $1,273.89 to support the Science Department Anatomy Models project. And the Initiative Foundation has generously given Ms. Swearsgala a grant awarded in the amount of $1,400 to support the Young Learners Project. Whereas the conditions of these gifts are included in your packet, therefore be it resolved by the Royalton School Board to greatly accept the gifts. The motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by member.
Hackett,
Thank you. Upon a roll call vote being taken thereon, the following voted in favor of.
Director Bauman,
Abstain.
Director Hosted,
Aye.
Dr. Hackett,
aye.
Director Boyd,
Aye.
Director Roy, aye. Director Trump,
Aye.
All right. And one abstain, so the motion passes, the resolution passes, 6-0. Thank you, and thank you for all of those donations. That was a whole lot to say, but our school district can definitely use all of those. Next into policy readings. So our first policy reading, 522, Title IX, sex non-discrimination policy, grievance procedure and process. We're gonna start looking at those this month, the 3 of these. Internet acceptable use and safety policy and process. And 904, distribution of materials on school district property by non-school persons. That one we brought to this because as we were talking through, one of the ones that were on the second policy reading, the distribution of non-school sponsored materials on school premises by students and employees, we thought, well, we should probably look at the one that's by non-school persons as well. So we added that to the list. So second policy readings is that one 505 and then wellness that we took a look at this last time. And then looking for approval for its second policy readings, which is a final reading due to only minor changes, the school district and curriculum and instructional goals. I think that one was subsection and CFR spelled out. Were the changes in that one. And then the crisis management policy to look at review and there are minimal subsection ones in that one as well. So I'll take a motion to approve the second policy readings.
So moved. Second.
All right, who was the first?
Me.
All right, thank you. So motion by Director Trout, second by Director Bauman. Any discussion on these two? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right, and approval of third policy readings. These. The first two had a lot of in-depth discussions about what we were putting in there and why, especially with definitions of the bullying part of it. A lot of those changed with a new sub-statute of the law. Also the protection and privacy of pupil records. There were a couple law changes in that one that gave us about another page of stuff in there. And then the student disability non-discrimination changed 3 words around to person with disabilities. And then the Pledge of Allegiance was no change up to that. So I will take a motion for approval of the third policy readings. Director Bellman.
Second.
All right, thank you. Director Trout. So I have motion in the second. Any discussion on those? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thanks. All right, upcoming meeting schedule. June 14th, policy meeting. I will not be here for that. June 20th, noon finance meeting. And then Monday, June 26th, regular board meeting. Any other issues with the policy committee, so we can make sure we have enough there. Good, okay. And then finance committee, you guys are good, okay. Yeah, then the next one. Any other upcoming meetings that need to get added onto here at all?
Do we want to do a work session?
Do we want to have a June work session?
Oh, yeah, June 20th is a problem. Is there any way we can move finance committee? I can just be online, because we have a retreat at Sourcewell, the leadership team, but I'll just jump online. So,
I'd say no to work session. I'd say August. I don't think there's anything super pressing that needs to be brought up. Unless somebody has something else. That they think needs for a work session. I think August would be fine. I don't think there's anything too pressing unless somebody else has something that they think needs to be discussed. That's my
Well, and we'll see, because at our June meeting, we'll have a much bigger legislative update,
Yes,
and that may mean we need to do one in July, but I also agree, I don't think we need to do one in June. All right. So I will take a motion to close the regular meeting.
So moved.
Director Hackett,